Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's panel discussion hosted by Residential Systems, where we'll be investigating the new IMAX Enhanced program. For those of you unaware, this is a new certification program that was announced at CEDIA this past September with the goal of elevating the home viewing standard. Information was pretty light on this new program at the show, so we're hosting this webinar today to really dig in and find out exactly what makes IMAX Enhanced tick, how it differs from other certifications, and what benefits the program is hoping to bring to the home market. My name is John Siaka, and I will be your host and moderator today. I'm a regular contributor and reviewer for Residential Systems, as well as co-owner of a custom installation firm in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina, which is where I'm joining you from today. I am pleased to be joined by 4 industry experts who will be answering all of your IMAX Enhanced related questions today. There will be time for Q&A at the end of the panel, so feel free to submit any questions and we'll do our best to answer them all by the end. Before we begin, let me introduce our 4 panelists. First up is Robert Brennan. Robert is the training manager for home entertainment and sound at Sony Electronics North America, where he communicates the Sony brand story, product features and benefits, as well as fundamental technologies to a wide audience that includes industry partners, press, and enthusiasts. With more than 15 years of experience working in the fields of training and communication, Brennan played a significant role in the launch of many of Sony's premier products, including 4K, HDR, OLED, and most recently, the Master Series line of ultra-premium TVs. Our next panelist is Philip Jones. Philip has more than 20 years of experience in the consumer electronics industry, and he has developed a variety of marketing and training content for several industry leaders, including Sony and Yamaha. Jones currently serves as the director of training at Sound United, where he is responsible for developing content and sales tools to support the multiple Sound United brands throughout North America. Jones works directly with the engineering and marketing teams to create training materials and retail tools to effectively highlight the benefits of Sound United's extensive product lineup, with the goal of providing internal employees, retailers, and members of the press the information and assets to best relay the features and benefits of Sound United brands. Next up is Bruce Marco. Bruce is the Senior Vice President, Head of Post-Production, DMR, and Operations at IMAX Corporation, where he oversees IMAX's production and post-production efforts and works closely with today's biggest filmmakers to optimize their films for IMAX presentation. With a career in film post-production spanning decades, Marco has worked in all aspects of feature production and post-production, including visual effects, sound, editorial, developing digital workflows, and managing operations at Marvel Studios, Overture Films, Revolution Studios, and MGM Studios. Among others, he is a member of the Motion Picture Academy of Arts and Sciences. Finally, we have John McDaniel. John is Vice President of Business Development responsible for ecosystem opportunities at Xperi Corporation, which is the parent company of DTS. With nearly 14 years serving in engineering, product management, and strategic roles, John has launched many DTS audio technology solutions on both the content and device sides of the business. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's just jump straight to the heart of it. Bruce, tell us, what exactly is IMAX Enhanced?
Okay, well, let me just quickly give you a little bit of a history about IMAX, just in general for our theatrical business, which has actually, IMAX been around for about 50 years, but in the last 20 years, we basically are, as most of you or some of you probably know, our screens are bigger on average than anybody else in the industry in theaters. And we have our own proprietary projection technology, which is also brighter and features higher contrast than any other systems on the market as well in our theaters. We also have proprietary sound format in our theaters, which have more amplification, more robust speakers, a slightly different speaker configuration than other theaters as well. So basically, our theaters demanded, because of this unique design in our theaters, it demanded that we remaster movies specifically for the IMAX theaters. And this was done and developed with a new tool called DMR, which stands for Digital Media Remastering. And basically what this is it's kind of a noise reduction tool that helps us optimize the movies for our screens. And this is done in conjunction with filmmakers who come to IMAX and actually modify and adjust and tweak the look of the movie on IMAX display devices in theater here at IMAX in Los Angeles to really optimize the way the movie looks and sounds. And movies are also remixed in the IMAX sound format as well. And this is done with the original filmmakers doing that. So it's really, we take great efforts to work closely with filmmakers to optimize the look of the movie and how it sounds. And the thing that's interesting now about IMAX Enhanced is because now high dynamic range displays have become more common and much, much larger in size, much, much brighter, much higher contrast. Well, what does that sound like? It sounds like what our theaters have had for quite some time. And one of the issues that we've noticed is that on high dynamic range displays, especially in films, noise is become a huge problem. And whether this is digital noise or if actually film grain, if the movie was captured on film, on these high dynamic range displays, it becomes more of an issue where you see it where it wasn't really noticeable before in theatrical or in other video formats in standard HD or standard dynamic range. So our new version of our DMR technology is really, really good at reducing the kind of grain and noise in the imagery and managing it in a way where the filmmakers have control over it to really adjust it so the way the movie looks in the home on a high dynamic range bright display is now again being optimized for those types of display devices. So that's what led us into creating IMAX Enhanced, which is really kind of an ecosystem of both products and content that is optimized for HDR 4K large screen TVs. And so that's kind of the overview of how and why we got into it, because we feel that there's a real benefit using our technology to improve the quality of the image in content. Along with that, of course, is the rest of the ecosystem, which is the certification of sets. And if I'm jumping ahead too far here, you can stop me, but because I know we'll have some of this we talk about later. But and I think, can I see you're on the slide there that's showing one of our colorists here where we're remastering something in HDR. And one of the things you might notice in this picture is he's got a professional monitor in front of him, but on the right side in that photo, you'll actually see we're using one of our IMAX Enhanced certified televisions. It's one of the new Sony TVs, 65-inch, because one of the things that we're doing and that we're encouraging the studios to do is to really review the grain and noise issues on this consumer display. And while this is just kind of a crummy picture, it's amazing how close these Sony consumer displays, when properly calibrated, look to these mastering monitors. And it enables the filmmakers and our colorists to really optimize the look of the movie for the home environment. And that's the other reason why we have the kind of an IMAX mode that's being set and selected as well by us that will be part of these TVs too. Does that cover us?
I know that gets us through the first question for sure. I know that the certification program that most people in the industry are familiar with is THX. And how will IMAX Enhanced certification differ from what THX has done, and will it differ on both the hardware and the software side? How will that certification work?
Well, IMAX certification, we do have some standards that have been created for the hardware, and there will be test and certification centers that will be testing hardware to make sure that it meets certain parameters. There's also, because we're doing more, THX was just a pure certification of a specific spec. We're kind of going broader than that. We are looking to have an IMAX mode that is in the televisions that again is calibrated and created by IMAX and Hollywood colorists that will really make, because even amongst sets, they're all going to be a little different manufacturers, different capabilities, but we are just going into the highest level hardware devices in the market to start, in that we're really only wanting to, certain sets meeting that kind of high bar of standards, even though there is a variation between units and between manufacturers and sets. It's more than just kind of a pure certification. And we think that the mode setting is also something that is somewhat special, because again, it was set by us, and it will help ensure that if you're playing back IMAX Enhanced content that was specifically mastered for our sets, that will give you the closest representation and reproduction of that content to what the intent is of the filmmaker. So,
gotcha. So the first licensed IMAX enhanced partners include Sony Electronics, Sony Pictures, Paramount Pictures, and Sound United, which includes the Denon and Marantz brands. Robert and Philip, what can you tell us about the first models that will be available from Sony and Sound United, and when can we expect to see those at market?
Well, I'll let Rob start, and then because I like to talk a lot. So, Rob, go ahead.
Well, that certainly is the truth. I have lots of experience there. So in terms of the products that Sony has that are already IMAX certified, we have a few products in both of our television lineup as well as our consumer display projector products for our display business. So you recently launched our new Master Series line of television that includes both an OLED and an LCD flat panel television. Both of these are IMAX certified, as well as our kind of a premium but mid-tier television, the X900F, which is also LCD based. So those are all available right now at retail through regional accounts and online and big box retailers. And so you can go and purchase those sets today. As far as our projector lineup, all of the current Sony True 4K projectors support IMAX Enhanced. And this starts with our VPL VW295ES that retails for about $5,000. All the way up to our flagship 5,000 lumen 4K laser projector, the VPL VW5000ES that retails for $60,000. So every 4K model that we have in our entire line of our entire stable supports the new IMAX standard. If you happen to have either of our last year's, we'll call them last year's models, but the 285 or the 385, those also still support IMAX Enhanced. Although they're end of life, there are a few retailers that have those that are available. Some of you may have them in your shops or have recently installed them at customers' homes. So those support IMAX Enhanced as well. So we have lots of products that are currently available, and this is something that we'll, of course, will be looking at including in products moving forward as well.
Philip, you want to jump in now on the D&M side?
Yes. So both brands, both of our AVR brands, Denon and Marantz, are going to launch products that support IMAX Enhanced. So I put together a quick little slide of the Denon models and as well as the Marantz models. Also, both of our high-end flagship pre-pros AV processors also support IMAX Enhanced as well. So basically, if you're in that $1,599 to $1,699 price point, you're right in there where we can start offering you the performance that IMAX Enhanced offers.
And from your guys' standpoint on the products, what benefits will a user expect from IMAX Enhanced certified products?
Well, it's always, just like Sony is concerned with reproducing the artist's intent, and so is Sound United. We're an audio company. All of our brands are audio brands. We have 6 of them, and and what the artist created is what we want to deliver, and we want to give the consumer options. If you go to a movie theater right now, you'll see that if I go look at a blockbuster movie, I can walk into a theater and there will be a Dolby Vision Atmos theater, a IMAX theater, a 3D IMAX theater, a standard theater, and even maybe a THX theater showing that same movie. It's not for us as a manufacturer to determine what is the best format for the consumer or for the client. It is that person's decision. And we want to make sure that regardless of what movie or what way they want to watch the movie, they get the best performance and what the director and what the creator intended.
According to IMAX's statement, manufacturers must design home theater equipment, and I'm quoting, to meet carefully prescribed set of the highest audio and video performance standards set by a certification committee of IMAX and DTS engineers and Hollywood's leading technical specialists. So Bruce or John, can you comment on what these performance standards are?
John, you want to take that?
Sure, I'll take that one. On the audio side, I believe we touched on some of this, but it's related to the AVR's capability, the processor's capability to reproduce that IMAX signature sound. So obviously there's some requirements there in terms of the amplifiers and the general speaker layout capabilities of the devices. So on the AVR side, DTS-X is a minimum requirement. A immersive audio support is a minimum requirement. There's speaker layouts around what's required there, and then certain requirements around the reproduction of that IMAX signature sound, which we may get into in a moment, on the base management and LFE side as well. And then on the display side and the projector side, there's minimum requirements around peak luminance, black level, and then some more subjective requirements around golden eyes testing that allows us to determine whether an IMAX, whether a TV or projector would be appropriate to be an IMAX enhanced device. Bruce, do you want to touch on anything else there?
No, I think that you covered it there.
Okay.
So will we see an IMAX enhanced badge or label on certified products, or will that be up to the manufacturer?
So you will see IMAX enhanced logo on the certified products. And in terms of that appearing on boxes or displays, some of the initial products that received the IMAX enhanced firmware update, obviously those products won't have the IMAX enhanced logo on the device. Nonetheless, those are fully compatible IMAX enhanced devices. But going forward, you'll see the IMAX enhanced logo. You'll see that logo on the products as well.
You don't happen to have an image of it, do
you? Do we have an image of it? It looks similar to the logo that you're looking at the top left of the slide currently being shown, and there's also a stacked version of that. So IMAX on top of the enhanced.
Yeah, the slide before had it, I think, where the receivers. Yeah, there it is.
There you go.
Yeah, so those are both options. If you buy a Denon or Marantz piece that has that is upgradable or already has the firmware upgrade for IMAX Enhanced, you will see the logo on the box, and there's also the little stickers on the receivers when you buy them. When you walk into a retail environment, you will see it there. There's also going to be a little almost like a handout or a little alert that when you open the box originally, it'll tell you that this product is compatible and is ready to be upgraded to IMAX Enhanced. So for all you custom integrators that don't like to do firmware updates, maybe you should do a few that firmware update before you finish your install, just to make sure that they have all of the surround sound modes that the AVR can provide.
Robert, Bruce touched on this a bit, but will there be an IMAX video mode on Sony's certified products?
It's a great question. So currently, there's not an IMAX enhanced mode for the products that are IMAX certified. The products that were certified were, of course, in production well before IMAX enhanced is ready to launch. So it's something that we are going to continue to look into and partner with IMAX and make that determination moving forward at some point. What I can tell you right now is for the televisions, if you want to enjoy the IMAX enhanced experience the way that the set was certified, then you're going to want to put that television in either to the cinema mode if you have a Master Series product, or if you're using the X900F into the cinema home mode. So those were the picture modes that were evaluated and we'll call it found worthy of IMAX enhanced. On the projector side, the Film 1 mode, we have actually two cinema modes in our consumer projectors, Film 1 and Film 2. The Film 1 mode was the mode that was certified. So again, if you want to enjoy that IMAX enhanced content the way that it was evaluated and given that stamp of approval, then Film 1 is the mode that you're going to want to be in.
Now, would that be something that you could enable automatically via a flag, similar to the Netflix mode on the new master displays? And is that something that would happen down the road?
Yes, that's exactly how it would be handled if there was a mode. So we'd need to make sure that there was a tag within the video stream to identify itself to the television. And it could, of course, there's the potential there to change modes. But like I said, that's something that we haven't made a final determination on at this point.
Gotcha. So, John, same question on the audio side. Will there be an IMAX sound mode? And if so, how will it differ from the regular DTS-X mode?
For John or Philip?
Either one, whoever wants it.
Sure.
Well, I can. I mean, I can answer it if you want. So,
Elaborate.
it's up to, okay, so what ends up happening is in the DTSX content there will be a flag, and the flag will identify itself that it has the IMAX, that it's IMAX enhanced. When that happens, you'll see there'll be some slides later. The AVR will switch to an IMAX enhanced mode. Nice thing about it, when that content is there, you will see it across the display. It says IMAX DTX. Once that happens, there's a pre-described there's modes and settings and levels that will be adjusted. So basically, as an installer or a consumer, you will set up this receiver the same way you've always done it. You would use the Odyssey, and you would set it up running all of the Odyssey test tones to get all your levels. When it's running a traditional piece of content or some maybe Atmos or regular DTSX, it will utilize the modes that the settings that you have. Once it senses a IMAX enhanced piece of material, it'll make some adjustments to the base management, the output, the crossover settings, and things like that based on the recommendations and the requirements for IMAX, so you get the impact of the IMAX content. The second you switch out of the IMAX enhanced content, it'll go back to your original settings. So basically, dial it in the way you always dial it in, and then IMAX and Sound United will make sure that when the IMAX enhanced content comes out, you'll get the sound that they intended for you to hear.
So customers will see, similar to, we have a Dolby Atmos pops up on the display. They'll actually will say IMAX on the front of the processor, so they'll know that they're decoding the IMAX signal.
Exactly, and there's some other ways as we go along in slides. I'll show you other places where you will see it, and you'll be able to identify that the content is actually IMAX enhanced, and those types of things, and where you can turn it on and off, and how can you determine how you want to utilize the actual the modes and its performance.
John, did you have anything to add on to that? How the IMAX mode will differ from the regular DTSX mode?
And maybe I should take a. Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So maybe I should take a step back related to the process that was defined in determining how we take the IMAX signature sound cinema and bring that to the home. So we reviewed this with a series of Hollywood experts and sound mixers, and iterated on essentially the conversion formula representation of that IMAX signature sound in the home. And then once we developed and finalized that formula, we determined that there were things that we could do related to that conversion process in the PCM domain, so in the post-production process. And then there were other things that we actually had to do on the AVR itself. So with that flag that we include in the IMAX bitstream allows us to complete that conversion process on the AVR itself based on what we know about the consumer's home environment, speaker configuration, the size of the speakers, and all of that is told to us what is an appropriate representation of that IMAX signature sound in the home, and that's when the AVR switches into IMAX mode and completes that conversion process. What I will say is that the IMAX DTSX bit streams are entirely backward compatible with the DTSX AVRs in the market. Those AVRs will still receive essentially the best possible version of the mix that particular AVR processor is capable of reproducing. The IMAX DTSX AVRs, IMAX enhanced AVRs, will be able to fully complete the conversion process, so related to the base management as well as how we handle some of the channels. That is what the consumer receives when they purchase an IMAX enhanced AVR and play back an IMAX enhanced Blu-ray or 4K HDR stream, is that they get the full reproduction of that IMAX signature sound enabled by that IMAX enhanced device.
And I'd like to add that actually a lot of the initial titles we're doing and working with the studios are actually putting out our IMAX theatrical mix. It is a full dynamic range mix. Nothing's been compressed or remastered. It's what we were in the theaters. It's gone through the DTSX conversion, so it actually will have far more dynamic range than other formats of the audio that are on the market for those titles. And while this is still a studio and filmmaker choice as to whether they put out the original theatrical mix as opposed to what we call near field mixes, we're encouraging studios to put out the full dynamic range mix, because we believe that for people who have better systems, which are what we represent, we think that'll be a better experience in their home.
Well, I'm not going to call out any major studios for poor mixes recently, but I think anybody who was a 4K fan might know who I'm talking about. So I believe the cinematic IMAX mix, there's a screen height channel, or it's a slightly different layout. Will the IMAX mode at home try to remap a height screen channel, or will there be any differences as far as that goes?
Yes, it will actually. The DTSX will map that, and not all films have we call it our 12-channel format in our theaters, which has a high center channel, and then it also has the 4 overhead speaker discrete channels as well. So, but that high center channel, when it is available, will be reprocessed into the home format, and the DTS kind of maps it and gives you it'll feel like it's coming from there. So depending obviously on how filmmakers utilize it.
And what will be the ideal home speaker layout for IMAX? And what is the maximum number of channels that it can support?
Do you have that in front of you there, John? You want to, let me just see here.
It should be 11.1.4,
Right.
7.1.4, which is 11 channel format. So that's which many of the AVRs support. So that would be, a lot of times people are doing even something like maybe a 9.1.4 setup, and then when it sees the IMAX enhanced or DTSX content, it switches to using the 7.1.4 configuration. So that's pretty much where they're at right now, I believe.
That's correct,
So that would
Philip. And the only thing that I will add, and Philip is entirely correct, is that given the DTSX render and the IMAX enhanced, able to essentially recreate that signature sound in any consumer's environment. So whether that consumer has 5.1 or 7.1 or a full 7.4 system, we're able to reproduce that IMAX signature sound, and we're able to do so in the best way, utilizing the speaker configurations that Philip mentioned.
So Philip, how will IMAX DTS mode be handled in D&M products, and what configuration or setup will be required by the installer?
Well, like I said, as John's mentioned, the recommended one would be 7.1.4 or 11 channel. But if you have a 5.1.4 or a different configuration, the receiver will make the adjustments to give you as much impact as possible. So basically, you would dial in the speakers, and the layout is identical to a traditional DTSX configuration, which also will work with a Dolby Atmos configuration. So once you set that up, what will happen is the receiver will look at the content that's being played, and depending on how many channels you have, it will use the proper channels that are laid out, and also start applying, like I said, the bass management and the level adjustments to give you the sound that IMAX has determined would best represent what you saw in an IMAX theater. So the nice thing is the configuration is very, very similar to the layouts that you have been using for DTSX and Dolby Atmos with 7 speakers with 4 heights, and you will be good to go. So if you look here, we actually have a couple of receivers that actually support up to 13. And the goal is, as when the receiver senses whether it's Dolby Atmos, IMAX Enhanced, or DTSX, it will switch to the proper speaker configuration. You even have the ability. So, for example, in our movie, this is a layout that we actually had in our demo theater. So it was designed to run up to 13 channels of object-based audio. So if I was running a piece of Atmos, it may use 7.1.6. But then when it sensed the IMAX Enhanced, what happens is, if you look, there's 6 height speakers on the ceiling. The mid ones, the middle heights, would be basically switched off, and because they're not utilized for IMAX Enhanced or DTSX. So once you set up this main configuration, the receiver will determine which speakers should be on and which speakers should be off.
And will it support up-firing speakers if somebody can't put? I'm assuming that a traditional in-ceiling speaker layout would be the best for the overhead channels, but would it support and work with up-firing speakers if that was the install requirement?
Absolutely, and it also has the ability to utilize the virtual X, which will simulate having the heights above your head. So whether you can physically put speakers above you, or whether you're using the height enabled speakers that bounce off of the ceiling, the impact is very, very good. The receiver just needs to know what type of speakers you're using, and based when you run the Odyssey or the setup, it will figure out where they're placed and make sure the sounds come from where they should be coming from.
And I know you provided some slides kind of showing the configuration in the Marantz setup menu. Would you mind walking us through those slides?
Yes. So the first thing, if you go into the menu settings and you go into where it says audio and surround parameters, you'll see at the bottom there's a selection for IMAX. Now, the receiver wants to know, what do you want to do when you see that IMAX Enhanced flag in the content? If I leave it in auto, you're telling the receiver, whenever you see the flag, apply all of the IMAX Enhanced parameters that have been stated by IMAX, and it will do all of the adjustments required. If it sees a regular piece of DTSX, it will not do any. It'll just run it as DTSX without those standards applied. If I set it to on, you can tell the receiver, whenever you see any DTSX type material, always apply the IMAX Enhanced settings. And if I set it to off, it says if you see DTSX material, whether it's standard or IMAX Enhanced, just play it back as DTSX. We recommend, if you really want to maintain what the artist's intent, leave it in auto. That way you get it the way the artist intended for you to see it and the content creator intended for you to see it. Now, that is in the menu system. Now, if you continue on, you will notice that on the receiver, you will also, whenever it's flagged, the menu or the movie sound selections will change. So if it's a regular DTSX, on the left, you'll see it just says DTSX. But if that piece of content flags itself when it's playing as IMAX Enhanced, you'll notice that the menu system will actually change to say, okay, this is an IMAX Enhanced piece of material, and these are the modes you can choose from to play back that IMAX Enhanced material. So you will not, under this setting, always see IMAX Enhanced. It's only when the content is flagged. Now, if you go to the next slide, because IMAX Enhanced is just overlaid on a piece of DTSX material, this is my UDP X800 Sony Blu-ray player, which I use to play back Atmos, DTSX, and of course IMAX Enhanced. And on the player, it will just say that it is DTSX. But if I bring up the info screen on the Denon and Marantz, you will see that it has recognized the flag and will tell you that that content is actually in IMAX Enhanced.
I think we're lagging a bit on the slide there. We'll see if we can get that up in just a second.
Okay, so go back one. Go back to I think we are moving kind of slow. There we go. So hopefully, let me know when to slide. So like I said, to the left is the Blu-ray player, and to the right is the menu from the receiver. And I have actually tried a couple of Blu-ray players. This is actually Journey to the South Pacific, which is one of the first movies that have been released. And I've played it back on a few different Ultra HD Blu-ray players. And they worked through my, that is an AV8805, my pre-pro, and it worked flawlessly.
So that brings up my next question. I know there was a little bit of a hiccup at CEDIA with, I think I was on the disc authoring that required using a special Ultra HD Blu-ray player to work. But when the official titles come out, they will be compatible with all UHD Blu-ray players. And will that include Xbox One? John, can you answer that?
Absolutely. So in short, yes, it is Blu-ray, or I should say 4K UHD Blu-ray player agnostic. So it will be supported within all Blu-ray players on the market today.
And will any players require a firmware update the way some did with Dolby Vision, or if it should just play in any player, no special sauce needed?
That's correct. So play in all players. We're leveraging a number of existing technologies to recreate the IMAX enhanced experience. So again, it will be supported by all 4K UHD Blu-ray players.
Excellent. Bruce, I think this is for you, maybe for John, though. But what version of HDR will the enhanced titles be using? Will it be HDR 10, 10 plus, Dolby Vision, possible to change as it develops, or what will that be?
Yes, we're basically either HDR 10 or HDR 10 plus. Won't be on Dolby Vision titles. But HDR 10 or 10 plus, and that's basically determined by the studios and how they want to release or which format they want to use.
Excellent. So as far as the certification goes, oh, I'm sorry, did somebody have a question?
There's one more thing I want to stress, that even if it's 10 plus is backwards compatible to HDR 10. So whether the disc has 10 plus on it, you can still play it back in HDR 10. So it's going to be 10 or 10 plus, which is still backwards compatible with HDR 10. So you can enjoy the material, okay? You don't have to have a HDR 10 plus display if the disc, even though the disc has 10 plus on it. So that's something that we definitely want to stress, because I believe the disc that I have has 10 plus on it, and my TV is not a 10 plus.
Good point. So as far as the certification goes, is there a minimum screen size that would be considered, or is it more to do with the display's capabilities and video parameters?
It's John. You want to?
In general?
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Sure. In general, it's 65-inch and above. So again, we're trying to reproduce that IMAX cinematic experience in the home, and with that, IMAX is big picture and big sound, and therefore we feel that those larger displays are a better reproduction of that experience.
Robert, as far as Sony goes, is the certification something that they're going to use to differentiate upper tier models, or will we see certified products coming down into the 850 series and maybe even below?
That's a great question. And unfortunately, I'm not in a position where I can speculate as to what may change in the future. What I can tell you right now is that we've made a very conscious decision to only even submit our top tier televisions to IMAX for certification. We feel that IMAX definitely is a value added. It's a premium brand with a premium experience. We feel that ties very well with the premium offerings that Sony has. We just recently launched our Master Series televisions, which really bring about the opportunity or the expectation to reproduce the creator's intent in the home. And IMAX Enhanced goes hand in hand in lockstep with that exact same philosophy. And so these are the types of the display products that typically we're looking to partner with IMAX Enhanced. So right now it's the definitely high, mid-tier, and the premium sets exclusively. That, of course, may change.
John, how far downstream should we expect to see IMAX certified products come? Will we see it extend into speakers? Will you certify sound bars or laptops, or is this just going to remain for displays and receivers and processors?
Sure. So we've announced today with our launch partners TVs and projectors on the image side, as well as AVRs, and we did in the initial announcement announce sound bars. Now, those sound bars have been announced to date. High end of the market in ensuring that those sound bars could reproduce, essentially the power required to reproduce that IMAX sound. So that is what has been announced today. Obviously, speakers are a natural extension of that, but we have not yet announced plans for speakers, and we have not yet announced any additional product categories. There may be more to come, but we're really focused on the premium products and the premium product categories.
Cool. So
if I can, I think we might have skipped over one thing I just want to mention. If you want to go back to slide number 7, I believe. There you go. So one of the things that we're doing with content, there's a lot of movies today, and more movies are being produced for IMAX with expanded aspect ratio. As you probably know, most movies today, I'd say probably 90% of movies are actually filmed in the 2:40 aspect ratio, which, of course, in your home, you're getting a lot of black pillar boxing top and bottom, and it's nowhere near filling your screen. But in IMAX theaters, there's more and more movies today that are actually being produced that our IMAX theatrical screen is a 1:90 aspect ratio. And the content, the filmmakers are actually completing an expanded aspect ratio version for IMAX in theaters. The last Avengers movie had full expanded aspect ratio exclusively in IMAX. The next Avengers movie is going to have the same thing. There's other movies that are going to do this. The Aquaman movie coming out also has an extensive amount of footage in it that's expanded in IMAX. And so for people who are releasing content in the IMAX format, we're going to include this expanded aspect ratio content. So in essence, it's going to pretty much fill, and some movies actually will fill the entire 1/7/8 screen. Some will have the 1:90 letterboxing. It depends on the movie. But it becomes, again, a more immersive experience for the consumer. And we think that movies that have that, that's going to be something that people at home like. And again, it's not something IMAX is doing on their own. This is something that the filmmakers do in conjunction with us, and they approve it and creatively. So they're very much a part of that process.
Bruce, since you're talking about, I'm going to have Tony go ahead and advance us to the next slide. Can you talk about the picture quality differences that we can expect as well?
Yeah, again, as I mentioned earlier, the noise and grain issues are very problematic in HDR displays today, and our DMR technology is really, we believe, by far the best tool on the market to manage that. And while studios are trying to use noise, plugins and things to help manage that, we've had 20 years of experience working with this, and our newest generation of this tool is extremely being well received by people we've tested it on and are using it on our initial titles. And basically, it's, again, being done in conjunction with filmmaker approval, but it really, other noise reduction plugins that are used in mastering movies for the home can create all kinds of other issues with the contrast and sharpness and aliasing. And our tool doesn't do that. Our tool is very neutral, yet it still manages grain and noise and pulls it back to the original level that was intended by the filmmakers. And so we think that that's going to make a big difference on content that you see as these displays even continue to get better and better with more brightness and higher contrast. Especially in OLEDs, I'm sure some of you may have seen some things that you've played with and you go, geez, sometimes it doesn't look as good as you thought it would. And a lot of that is the noise and grain that's now been, magnified and amplified by the display devices, as well as with the larger size of the displays. So we think that our tool that's going to be used in mastering our content is going to make a big difference, and really on these big bright displays with contrast, going to make them look exactly how the filmmaker intended and better than any other format on the market.
Well, that segues us in perfectly to the next topic, which is the next crucial step is content. So, John, when can we expect this new content, the certified IMAX content, to start being available?
As soon as a week from now, John. So it was announced that you'll see the initial titles, and thank you for bringing up the slide. Initial titles, Journey to the South Pacific and A Beautiful Planet, on December 11th. And our content partners will make additional announcements shortly. But these titles are in a great, thank you, John. The IMAX enhanced experience. So they exhibit the expanded aspect ratio, the clear, sharp picture, and the 12.0 IMAX from the cinema that has been converted to a DTS-X immersive IMAX enhanced mix for the home.
And I can say I got this via FedEx about an hour before we started this, so the content will be coming very soon. Unfortunately, I've not had a chance to pop it in the player yet. How will we expect the content to be primarily delivered? Will it be only on disc? Will there be any streaming content from like a Vudu or a Netflix or Amazon? Or is that a to be determined thing?
No, so that was actually announced. It will be 4K UHD.
His voice.
Streaming. So you won't see any content that is just 4K, for example, is a requirement as well as 4K. So 4K HDR streaming.
You may have to repeat that. I think you cut off.
Yeah.
Apologies. Bruce, do you want to help me out? I heard my
Well, the studio again. How the studios choose to distribute the content is pretty much up to them. Some are going to favor physical media, others are going to favor streaming. But there will be streaming platforms available. They're not up yet, so to speak, or those. None of those have been announced, but there will be streaming versions available. And my guess is that may become the preferred method, obviously, as it seems to be going in that direction. But there'll be both physical media and streaming content.
And do we have an idea yet? Will there be a price premium on an enhanced title, or is that to be determined?
That's really to be determined by the studios. They control their home entertainment groups control pricing on products. It is not being suggested by IMAX or Xperi in any way. It's really a studio decision, and so we're not sure if there's going to be any premium or not. There may be, there may not be. It may be title specific, kind of like it is now.
Gotcha. And I see that some of the older Sony products, like the last generation 285 ES projector and the 675 ES, for example, have been certified. So kind of two questions, and I'm not sure if this is best for Robert or maybe for John, but will it be possible for existing components to be upgraded to be IMAX compatible? And if so, will they require any kind of a firmware update to make it so, or will that just be like on a case-by-case basis?
I can go ahead and jump in and answer that question. So it's interesting to use the word compatible. So if we take away kind of the IMAX certification for a moment, if you want to know whether or not you can take your maybe a slightly older or maybe an 850 series Sony 4K television, and can you feed it an IMAX enhanced source? The answer is yes. That is a 4K HDR television that supports HDR10. That television, however, has not been submitted to IMAX for certification, so we can't comment on whether or not it meets their specific requirements, especially the Golden Eye evaluation that was already mentioned. But in terms of compatibility, 4K HDR that supports HDR10, those types of devices should all be compatible with this type of content. In terms of going forward, I can tell you right now, we haven't made any announcements in terms of having our older or our models below the 900F submitted to IMAX for certification. But in terms of compatibility, that is something that you should be able to enjoy.
Gotcha. So if somebody had an IMAX certified display, but not an AVR, or vice versa, and they put in an IMAX certified title, what happens?
Well, I can answer that because I have a IMAX compatible display and an IMAX certified receiver. So I have an older Sony 75-910C. And what happens is when I put the disc in, they're separate. The video side and the audio side is separate. So you can take. I do still get the video benefits of the less film grain, the extended aspect ratio that I would have. So I still get to enjoy that on my older HDR television set. It's not a 10 plus, but it's a 10, so I still get great HDR. So that I get to take advantage of as much as what my TV can do. And then the receiver will come up with the flag, and then it will do the things that it needs to do. So you don't have to have, unlike if you have like a Dolby Vision thing where everything in the entire workflow has to be Vision compatible, Vision certified or compatible, you will get benefits as you work up. So if you start off with replacing your AVR, you'll get all the benefits of IMAX Enhanced. When you later decide you want to move from an older HDR TV to an IMAX certified display, you will get even more benefits. So the nice thing about it is, as you work your way up, you can get more and more of the advantages, but the audio side and the video side are independent of each other.
You know, and I think from my standpoint, the key, as you just mentioned, is that the products all work independently of each other. So it really depends on what the consumer wants to do. For the ultimate experience, it would be playing back IMAX content on an IMAX certified television and with an IMAX certified or an enhanced AVR and speakers. So basically, IMAX Enhanced represents the kind of highest bar for the products in the marketplace. So it makes it easier for the consumer to really say, if I want the best of something, it would be an IMAX Enhanced product. But again, you don't need to. I mean, unlike Dolby Vision, which is different because Dolby Vision is in lower end HDR TVs. So it is not a bar. It is not a mark of quality in that respect. It is actually a format, as you know, that's basically mapping or trying to map the content to that TV's capabilities. That TV's capabilities may be quite poor in some of these sets because it's a $300 TV. It's not going to be anywhere near what these top of the line sets are. So at IMAX, we're more, we believe that being in top of the line sets and products are really what we want to, in theaters, we're a mark of quality. That's what we represent to consumers. They pay more to see a movie in IMAX. And the reason they do that is because we provide better presentations in our theater. We have quality control in our theaters that don't exist in other theaters. We're brighter, have higher contrast, our screens are bigger. So for that reason, we have that, that brand awareness is a quality brand awareness. And that's where we think to the consumer, with so many choices that they're faced with in the marketplace today, it's going to help them make that decision if they care about quality.
Yes. So,
all right.
I wanted to, I'm seeing a lot of stuff about speaker configurations and things like that. So do you want to answer that now?
Yeah, I was going to jump into the Q&A actually. So the first one is, will there be an IMAX Enhanced professional training program like there is for a THX certified professional? Or is this just going to be hardware and software certification?
I'll leave it to the IMAX guys.
We haven't made any announcements around certifying professionals for the IMAX Enhanced program. So at this time, there isn't a professional certification related to the dealers or installers. We will be publishing recommendations around how to IMAX Enhanced experience in a home or home cinema around certifying professional.
Okay, So, and in the meantime, for all of you guys who are thinking about how do I lay out a speaker system, the core of this is going to be it runs off of a DTSX base. So the speaker setup is the DTSX speaker setup, which is also compliant. We can also do the same type of setup for Dolby Atmos. So if you understand how to set up a speaker system, where should the speakers be placed? Where should the subwoofers be placed to optimize a DTSX setup? Do that. Once you do that, you'll get great DTSX, and then the second that IMAX signal is detected, the AVR will make the base management and the other adjustments required to utilize that speaker layout properly. So you don't have to know a new speaker layout. It's the DTSX speaker configuration. So so if you have an 11 channel, that's 4 heights and up to 7 surround speakers, so 7.1.4. If you have one of our higher end 13 channel receivers, you can set up a 7.1.6 with front heights, mid heights, and rear heights. And when the DTSX turns on, it's going to switch off the height middles and apply so it's the same setups you're doing now. You don't have to know a whole new layout when it comes to laying out speakers. I just want to stress that.
And another question was, what was the room size for your CEDIA demo room, and what is the recommended speaker placement for the 4 overhead for the .4?
Well, like I said, if you look at the Atmos as well as DTSX has posted the angles and the positions. So if you go to both of their websites, you can look that up, and you notice that if you're using 7.1.4, it's really, you can kind of get it to work in both applications. So if you go to DTSX, all of the information about where the speaker should go is already there. So just follow what you've already been doing. The theater that we had sat 14 people, I believe, and I think it was about a 20 by 20. I will say that we used a lot of subwoofers. We used full range speakers plus subs to get the impact and punch to really take advantage of it. We always recommend multiple subs anyway, at least 2. And that really helps with the bass management on this as well. But it's the nice thing about it is because you as an installer, you can focus on mastering DTSX configurations and Dolby Atmos configurations. And you know that when it sees a DTSX piece of material, it will apply the level adjustments and the bass adjustments and the crossover adjustments that are required to enhance the DTSX to IMAX Enhance. I really want to stress that.
We are down to the last 2 minutes, so try to get a couple of quick questions in. Will this be a U.S. only, or will it be a worldwide program? Bruce or John?
So we've initially announced, we've initially announced products in the U.S. With further announcements or I should say, to clarify, display products in the U.S. AVR products from Sound United are currently worldwide, and Philip could clarify. And then we'll have additional product announcements related to regions in the near future.
Gotcha. Another question was, will the IMAX Enhanced, could it use a physical top center speaker, or is it just a kind of remapped phantom top center speaker?
Well, because it's a DTSX format, there is no specification, I believe, for a top center or a voice of God that will be used on something like Oral 3D. So say you had on one of our big AVRs or a big pre-pros, those speakers would be switched off doing this, and then and that power would be directed to the speakers that would be utilized for this particular application.
Gotcha. And I'm sure this is going to be, it depends on the studio, but Somebody asked, is there any chance that something like an IMAX enhanced version of Infinity Wars would be released? It was advertised as you must see it in IMAX, but as everyone knows, those scenes were not on the discs. Is there any hope that we might get a new version?
That's something that we certainly would love to see, but there has been no decision or anything that's being announced at this time. But I think, we think that studios see the value in having the expanded aspect ratio content in the marketplace, especially if they've created it for our theaters. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But, my hope is that it does happen. And we do have this in other movies already coming up.
Well, everybody, that takes us to our hour. I thank you and the panel for the answers and the information, and thank you for watching and attending. This will be made available as a link afterward if you missed it or want to catch it again. So thank you again for joining.
You're welcome.
I think